The hero stood frozen in the eerie green light of the machine. The saucer-like monster hovered in the glade, but aside from the strange lights that pulsated from its dome head, the thing had simply hummed a low sound appearing mysteriously outside the city.
Maybe it just wants to make friends.
The gentle giant reached out a hand toward the saucer's body.
Be careful! You don't know what...
It was too late. The moment Big touched the machine, an awful grinding noise emanated from within. The massive metal monster spun around and bore itself into the ground.
Submit or be destroyed!
Well, I think that settles that. Big, Cream, let's give it a little flower power!
Without a word, Big opened up his large bamboo umbrella and twirled it over his head. Amy and Cream the rabbit jumped on top, holding each other's hands and whipping up a furious spinning speed.
1, 2, 3, go!
Amy let go of Cream to shoot herself at the machine with full force. Her hammer swung around in midair for a mighty blow, and then... Amy bounced straight off the whirling body of the saucer. She hit the dirt and rolled to safety, but the machine continued its awful dig, sinking its body firmly into the earth.
Submit, submit, submit!
The tone of the machine's voice had set the hero's hairs on end.
It looks like the top may be vulnerable! Try to crush its dome!
In a split second, a blue blaze flew over their heads, nearly blowing the heroes down with its force. The spinning ball of fury shot towards the machine's dome like a bullet, and struck it hard and true. The dome crumpled as the blue blur came into focus as Sonic the Hedgehog.
Were you waiting long? Just kidding. I know you weren't.
Underneath him, the half-sunken saucer shivered and steamed.
Submit, submit, submit!
The machine split wide open. With the wet, sickening sound, the metal body of the monster burst, shooting a torrent of sticky green slime all over Amy's team.
Whoa!
Tails had zipped high in the air to miss the green goo.
Gross! I feel like I got sneezed on by a giant.
Oh, my poor cheese!
Cream picked up her floating sidekick pal from where he was knocked to the ground.
I don't know. It actually feels kind of nice.
Sorry to say, but that's what happens when you're not the fastest thing alive.
Without the robotic saucer body, all that was left of the machine was a tall metal spire. In the middle sat a large green meteor rock that continued to pulsate with a strange light, even as it dripped a disgusting discharge.
We'll have to contact a medical team to decontaminate you. Standard procedure.
Have fun waiting to get hosed off. I've got more action to find instead of getting stuck in place.
The next day, Sonic sped through town in search of some fun. Street after street, the scene was calm and quiet. No explosions or attacks or action of any kind. Except at Cream and Cheese's house? Out front, the kindly rabbit and her parent were making a racket of clowns from a mountain of sheet metal. Cream struck a large wrench against a warped pile again and again. Sparks flew each time she struck, some jumping into Cheese's eyes, but neither of them seemed to care.
Hey, Cream. Working on an art project?
We are building the sphere!
Right, the spear. And you think a wrench is going to shape that metal up the way you want?
Cream stopped her motion mid-swing. She pulled the tool down slowly and stared at it for a long moment. The quiet made Sonic uncomfortable.
Perhaps you're right.
The wrench dropped with a thud, and Cream reached up her hands to grab the metal firmly. With surprising strength and an agonizing squeaking sound, the rabbit folded two pieces of strong metal as though they were paper. She started to mold and shape the pile like clay.
Wow, have you been working out?
Chao!
The little Chao creature that followed Cream everywhere floated up to Sonic's nose. Cream explained to Sonic that this meant that they had been strengthened and wanted Sonic to join them.
I've got somewhere else to be.
Sonic sped away before he got too close. The strange encounter drove Sonic across the city to Amy's house. If anyone knew what was going on with those two, it would be their best friend. But when Sonic arrived, Amy didn't charge out to greet him.
Amy! Anyone home?
Amy's door had been curiously open. When no one answered, he walked in carefully in case there was an ambush waiting. But what he had found was almost too boring. Amy and a room of maps.
This planet has so many people on it.
Amy leaned over a massive map of the planet. Pinned on every wall were charts of country borders and city streets. She was totally absorbed.
Planning a trip?
The trip is over. All that's left to now is to... Achoo!
Sonic noticed that her hands were now covered in green slime.
Gross!
Amy just looked at him with an empty stare. She slowly reached out her slime-covered hands.
It's fine. Touch it and you'll see.
In a blur, Sonic was gone again, roaming the streets for answers to whatever had happened to his friends. No matter how fast he ran, no answers came. Then it hit him. The slime. The crash site must hold answers to what was happening. Within seconds, Sonic was back on the outskirts of the town and rushing into the quiet glade. What met him there was another friend. Or was it? Big sat still as a stone in the blackened pit that the saucer had dug. While his back was to Sonic, it was clear that the large purple cat was staring up at the dented meteorite that was still glowing an eerie shade of green.
Hey, pal. Fish not biting today?
Fish? No. We are busy.
He rose slowly like a sleeping giant and lurched around. His eyes had turned a bright green, and streams of green goo dripped down into his whiskers.
To understand us, all you have to do is submit.
They couldn't be talked to, they couldn't be fought, and they most definitely couldn't be touched. Sonic sprinted into panic, thinking how he might save his pals. He soon found and burst into Tails' lab.
Tails, we need to do something. That space probe robot has infected Amy, Big, Cream, and Cheese with some kind of virus.
But that's not possible. The medical team checked the entire site. There was no organic material in that robot. Even the green slime was just some kind of insulation.
I don't care what you call it. It did a number on our friends, and they're acting like some kind of creepy crawlies. What can we do?
Well, I am running some tests on this sliver of meteorite.
Tails pulls back a shelf to reveal a 2-inch chip of rock. Sonic stopped dead in his tracks when he saw the green glare of the fragment.
Tails, you didn't touch it, did you?
Of course not. There's still a chance a metal like this could be highly volatile. So I took every precaution extracting it from the crash.
Well, we gotta figure out what it is and fast.
He looked out at the streets from the window. In the distance, he thought he could see Cream, slowly trudging along with a massive metal spike slung over his shoulder.
That's easier said than done. I'm good, but I'm no expert on cosmic metallurgy. I'm afraid we're just gonna have to wait until I can run every test I know.
But in the street, people were starting to scream. Cream began using her flying ability with her ears to spread slime all over the town. People were getting infected by the green slime and slowly turning into a diseased mob, wandering around in a slow motion as Tails and Sonic watched in horror.
Tails, if there's one thing I'm bad at, it's waiting.
The evening became a nightmare in slow motion. Sonic left Tails locked up in the lab and hit the town at top speed. warning anyone and everyone to avoid the sick. But no matter how fast Sonic ran, he was always too late. The people of the city were shambling through the streets, their heads hung low and their eyes glowing with sticky green slime. Yet despite their lethargic motions, everyone's strength seemed to have increased tenfold. They tore up the street lamps and stop signs and mailboxes. Anything metal was ripped up, crunched together and carried away by the growing masses.
Submit.
They're building something.
Sonic zipped along the alleys of the street undetected. Suddenly, a city bus landed in the street ahead of Sonic with an epic. He skidded hard to avoid hitting it. When Sonic looked up, he saw Big lumbering toward him.
Why does it run from us? We will not hurt it.
Sonic spun around to run the other way, only to see Cream and Cheese approaching him across the street.
Chao?
Sonic backed up against the wall of the building, only to see Amy slinking along the curb toward him. Her face was an eerie green mask.
Why can't it realize that it must submit or be destroyed?
Sonic sprinted through a small opening between two of them, and as he raced away, he looked back at an army of droning people with glowing green eyes.
They're right behind me, Tails!
The fox pulled an emergency lever. The windows and doors of the lab were soon covered by metal doors 4 feet thick.
I built this in case Eggman ever attacked, but it should hold them back for now.
But what are we going to do about them? They're everywhere!
Tails sat at his workshop bench and rubbed his eyes.
I have an idea.
A schematic of the saucer machine lit up on a screen behind him.
The green meteorite is more than a mere power source. It has a mind of its own.
Outside, the army of the infected had reached Tails' lab and began scratching at the metal walls.
So it's some kind of alien invader?
Not exactly. This thing isn't living or dead. It's more like a computer than anything else. Sailing through space on a makeshift craft for thousands of years. It's like a spear thrown into the sky that never came down. A spear with a simple, primitive program driving it to take over all it comes into contact with.
So if it's not alive or dead, how do we stop it?
I built this amplifier. It's attuned to the meteorite's unique frequency. I've used it to speak to the fragment.
And?
It's amazing, really. Just imagine, traveling in the cold of space for millennia. It's slower than us, but so much more patient. We can't even begin to understand what it can do, how it can communicate through touch and transmission and even by sight. And once we amplify it fully, everyone will understand.
Tails began rubbing his nails against the glass slowly.
Buddy, what are you talking about?
Sonic reeled back in horror. Tails turned to his friend as 2 thin green tears ran down his face.
Don't fight us anymore, Sonic. We've waited this long. We will take you eventually. And it's so much nicer once you submit.
With a slow squeeze, the fox shattered the glass container, grasped the meteorite fragment in his hand, and slammed down hard on the security switch. In an agonizing instant, endless streams of green arms scratched their way into the raising doors and lunged at Sonic. Sonic swooped through the lab and stole away Tails' amplifier device. Within seconds, he split it through the rare unclogged window and sprinted for the hills.
They need this thing to complete whatever they've got planned. But what can I do that doesn't just slow them down?
Fortunately for Sonic, Tails had prepared a memo that he now noticed was attached to the amplifier, telling him exactly what he needed to do. In the black of midnight, Amy, Tails, and the rest of the infected wandered their way to the crash site and handed their metal over to Big. Twice as strong as the others, he molded their collection around the meteorite spire to create one massive broadcast tower.
We have found the path.
We will send a signal home and call the great meteor here.
And soon the entire planet will submit to us.
Or be destroyed?
Sonic stood on a branch high above the crowd with the amplifier in his hands, and they turned their heads slowly in unison to look at him.
Do you understand us now? That we can wait forever to win?
I've accepted the reality, so I figured I might as well speed things up.
He leaped from the tree holding Tails' amplifier above his head and landed in the green crowd. Their hands were all over him as they passed Sonic across the glade. Each new touch rubbed him in slime, and he soon started to hear a voice in his head.
Submit. Join us and be strong in the cold stillness of time.
By the time Sonic had passed the metal tower, his eyes were bleary with the green light. Its power coated his brain, overriding any impulse that was his own. It would be easy to give in, but his mind raced with a plan.
This will spread our message across the stars.
Big the cat lifted up Sonic, and the Hedgehog pressed the amplifier onto the tower just above the glowing green meteorite. The crowd swayed in excitement. Sonic felt as his brain was drowning. Did he really want to do this? Did he want to submit to the power of the unliving rock? His hands attached the wires of Tails' creation to the tower slowly. His fingers ran over the dial, sticking on the buttons. Finally, it was ready.
I'm sorry.
He flipped the switch on, and then his vision erupted in fire. The world came into focus as the light of day stung Sonic's eyes. He was in a hospital bed surrounded by...
Tails! Amy! Big!
It's okay, Sonic. We're cured.
So it worked?
I'm glad you found my memo. Overloading the amplifier created a wicked feedback loop. The meteorite's power was never meant to pump out that much info that quickly.
Gotta move fast. But was anyone hurt?
Just you, pal. When the machine overloaded, it sparked and caught on fire in your hands. Luckily, the feedback was enough to burn the program out of everyone's system and melt down the tower.
Will I be okay?
You will make a full recovery. All it will take is time and patience.
Ugh, if there's one thing I'm bad at, it's waiting.